Are you liking Final Fantasy VIII? Doesn't have Final Fantasy VIII suck? And I've been telling all of you, you got to wait for the podcast, and the day is here. My pal Andre returns to the show this week as my guest. He is a staunch defender of Final Fantasy VIII and has been for some time. And we had a nice chat about this game, and a nice long chat. And I'm going to stress that as a heads up. We went for an hour and a half about Final Fantasy VIII. So that is without the intro and everything. There's an hour and a half of Final Fantasy VIII talk. So get comfy. This is a biggin. This is a biggin. And speaking of getting comfy, because this is a biggin, it is time for once again another edition of the Remember the Game infamous intro. And as always, particularly with this episode being a jumbo edition of the show, there are timestamps in the description box. So if you want to just skip around to something, if you want to get to the end of it, if you want to get to the game chat, if you want to play one, remake one, erase one, whatever. If you want to skip to something or jump around, jump up, and get down, you can do that. Bonus points to everyone that gets that reference, and super bonus points to anyone that gets that song stuck in their head for the rest of the day because of that. But yeah, look in the timestamp, look in the description box. I'll tell you when to skip to. I don't want to hear any complaining about the intro. Quick reminder, and I have to start doing this at least for the next couple of weeks, that you can find my stand-up comedy on all music services now. I do believe it'll show up if you search for Adam Blank, but the album is actually called Stand Up Alberta. You can look for it there. I have 3 tracks on there. They're all PG, squeaky clean, no swearing or anything. If you can throw me a download, that'd be awesome. I think I get 1/100th of a cent per download, so let's add them up and see if I can buy myself a 5-cent candy or something. 1/100th of a cent per day. So you can help me, you can support me that way, or if you really want to water this weed of ours, support us on Patreon. Support the Remember the Game over on the old Patreon service. It'll cost you $2 a month, which is a cup of coffee. Normal coffee, not that fancy Starbucks coffee. That stuff's loaded with nutrients. I can't compete with that stuff. But yeah, $2. I'll read your comments on the show. You can join on our Discord service. You can DM with me. Tell me I suck, whatever you want. I'll give you a shout out on here. And of course, you get extra podcasts. You'll get early access to my gaming news show, Game Patch. Instead of waiting until Monday, you'll have it every Friday morning waiting for you locked and loaded. And you'll get exclusive access to Expansion Pass. And you'll get instant access to every previous episode as well. There are over 60 bonus podcasts waiting for you. You can download them right onto your phone or listen to them in the Patreon app, whatever you want. There's game reviews, game rankings, console retrospectives, game discussions. It is simply the best show in our rotation. I really believe that. Last week, we talked about controllers. I went through every controller that I've owned from the NES right up to today. I shared a bunch of your thoughts as well. We praised some, we shit on some, the best of the best, the worst of the worst, the middles of the middles. It was really, really fun. So as is becoming tradition, here is a sneak peek of this past Sunday's episode, the most recent episode of Remember the Game Expansion Pass. Nathan wrote into us and said, my most favorite, hands down, is the original PlayStation DualShock controller. That was my next jump up in gaming after my SNES, and my first delve into having analog sticks. And having the dual analogs in the right space on the controller was perfect, and there also wasn't an excessive amount of buttons. Looking at you, Nintendo 64C buttons. Yeah, we'll get there in a second. But I think Satan and Nathan make a great point here. For a lot of us, this was our introduction to the dual analog setup that we all know now with the 2 matching analog joysticks. And I Googled it to make sure I wasn't crazy. The Nintendo 64 controller came out in 1996. The dual analog PlayStation controller came out in 1997. So I know personally I had used the Nintendo 64 controller for a while before I got my hands on the dual analog. And we're going to get into the Nintendo 64 controller in a minute, but that single analog stick on a twig that came with the 64 controller is absolutely no competition or comparison for the dual analog original PlayStation controllers. Not even close. And I think Sony deserves a lot of credit for this. Not only is the PlayStation 1 controller comfortable to hold, easy to use, but they kind of paved the path here, man. Like, this is a big deal with the dual analogs, because that's just so standard now. I spent over 5 hours writing my notes and doing my homework for that show to make sure I got every controller covered, all the details and everything. I really tried. So I hope everybody liked that. For this Sunday, Our $5 tier patrons will be picking the topic. At $2, you get access to the shows. At $5, you actually help pick some of the topics. I don't know what the topic will be yet. The poll is running right now, but some of the suggestions over there are the must-own game for every retro console, your 4-character RPG dream team. If you could only play 5 games for the rest of your life, what would they be? What are your proudest gaming achievements? Whole bunch of fun topics. One of those is going to win. That will be the topic this Sunday. I just don't know what one's going to win the poll yet. So again, $2, tons of value. You help keep me on the air. We're up to 192 Patreons. We are so close to that magic number 200. And remember that our first 200 patrons will get Remember the Game lanyards courtesy of yours truly. And for the record, if you sign up today and then we hit 200 on like May 8th and you let your Patreon lapse between now and May 8th, then you're not part of that too. I just want to clarify that. Like, it's when we hit 200 active patrons in those 200, just for the record. But you'll get a Remember the Game lanyard courtesy of yours truly and a nice little thank you note. So a huge thank you to our newest Patreon supporters, Retro Boozmall, Andy Hudson, John Byrne 86, and Paul Bullard. Thank you all so much, and welcome to Remember the Game Industries. Patreon.com/Remember the Game. And don't forget, I have a P.O. box. The address is, I'm not even going to say it because no one's going to remember it. But the address is on my website, which is rememberthegamepodcast.com. You can just shoot me a postcard or a letter, something little. Tell me where you are, that you're listening to the show. I'll send you a Remember the Game postcard back. We'll be friends. It'll be awesome. It's been a nice haul over the last week. You guys spoil me rotten. I got a nice personalized postcard from my buddy Tim over at Codenames Live, which you can find on Twitch. And I've played that sometime, and he just confirmed that I am the official jerk. He didn't say that, but I know I am. I'm the official kind of bad boy of Codenames Live. I'm a little angry sometimes over there, and I like it. I also got a digital copy of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World for the Nintendo Switch from my friends Angela and Dan over at DNA Gaming. And then the one and only Keegs, a longtime member of our community, hooked me up with a USB Ethernet adapter for my Nintendo Switch, which is fucking a super thoughtful and awesome gift. So thank you all so much. Mucho appreciated. And then finally, I'll finish with all the self-promotion. You can find me on Twitch. I stream Tuesday and Thursday nights, and I stream Sunday afternoon. Go to Member the Game over on twitch.tv. So go to twitch.tv and then search for Member the Game, not Remember. And we've been getting more and more people that have been coming by that are like, hey, first time coming by the stream. I always say hi. I try to talk to everyone. I don't have thousands of fucking chatters, followers, so I can try to keep up with most of the conversation in the chat. It's really, really fun. So come by there and say hi. All right? And that's it. That's enough blowing myself. Let's blow you guys. Let's blow in some cartridges. It is our opening segment here on the show. I read a few comments and questions from our Patreons, usually gaming related, but not always. And as we call this segment, blowing in the cartridge. So let's blow. And our first blower this week is Morgan. And Morgan wrote in, speaking of the Twitch stream, and said, I just finished attending the live streaming this Sunday of Adam playing God of War over on Twitch, and I'll say that it was my favorite stream so far next to the charity marathon. I know it sounds corny, but watching someone else experience a game you love for the first time is very fulfilling. You know what? First of all, thanks, Morgan, for coming by Twitch. And like I said, I stream on Sunday afternoons, and this past Sunday, I played God of War for a few hours, and it's spectacular. I think like my admiration for this game really did come through on the Twitch stream. It was my first time playing it. I'm falling in love with it as I play it. And I know exactly what you're saying, Morgan. Former Remember the Game Hall of Famer Mark McHugh has been playing Last of Us for the first time, and he's been messaging me about how much he likes it and how awesome the story is and stuff. And that makes me feel nice because it's like, yes, I know that it is awesome, and it's awesome to see other people experience a game that you love, like you said. Look at how many of you got hooked on Slay the Spire after listening to me praise it on the show here for months and months and months and months. And every time I get another message from somebody being like, dude, Slay the Spire is awesome, I'm like, yes, it is, and I'm so happy that I helped you find that game. You don't click with every game, and just because you don't hate a game doesn't mean that it checks every box and really connects with you. I don't know what the number is, but I think if you're falling in love with 1 out of every 10 or 15 games you're playing, that's a great clip. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean you don't like it, or you do like it, or you don't like it, but there's so few games that just really scratch every itch and really just click home. And it really is special when you find that connection with the game. And I'm absolutely experiencing that with God of War. I'm smitten with it. I'm glad that came through on the Twitch stream. It's spectacular. I love it. It may go down as my favorite PlayStation 4 game when I'm done. So thanks, Morgan. And thank you, Stupid Monkey, for hooking me up with a copy of God of War. Boognish wrote into us on Patreon and said, Adam, so keep up the great work. I apologize for any confusion I may have caused regarding my gender. I've changed my profile picture to better reflect my appearance. I hope this helps. And fuck. So last week I shouted out Boognish. I can't remember if Boognish wrote in with a comment or if I was I must. Anyway, so I shouted out Boognish. And I think I said he, and then I was like, not to get all politically correct, but I was like, Boognish could be either. So I stepped back and I was like, I don't know if you're a he, a she, what you are. And I was like, that's just it. Boognish is kind of an ugly name. It is. It's ugly. It's an ugly name. And it turned into an ugly segment where I didn't know what Boognish was. I love that name, but I don't know what Boognish is. So Boognish has clarified, but the new avatar is just a spiky-haired smiley face cartoon that I still don't know. So Boog is now officially a gender here at Remember the Game Industries. We're all just Boogs, you guys. So thank you, Boognish. Boognish, I love it. Adam Anderson wrote in quickly here. This is a good point. To throw it back to the controller's expansion pass episode from Sunday, because it never came up. The PlayStation 3 controller was almost very different. If you're not familiar with it, look up the PS3 Boomerang. Fucking great point, Adam. I never mentioned it. I forgot all about that. But like, dude, I totally remember that. If you guys haven't seen it, maybe some of our younger listeners don't remember this. Google the PlayStation 3 Boomerang. And it literally is a boomerang with buttons on it. And that's almost what the PS3 controller was. And it's funny because I was praising all the PlayStation controllers on that expansion pass because I was like, they don't really change them much. And they don't have to. They're perfect. They work as is. And then the PS3 was almost a fucking disaster with that boomerang. So good pull, Adam. I forgot all about that. Make Mallow Shift Money wrote in. So it said, woohoo, not only is Analog releasing a new crop of their Super Nintendo build, but is confident in their online security and monitoring and canceling resales of the Analog Pockets to assure that anyone who wants one will get one. Do you think they can do it? And do you have any interest? So just quickly, if you don't know, Analog is this company online that makes like modern retro gaming consoles. So the Analog Pocket is this really fucking sick looking modernized Game Boy that can play all the old Game Boy games, but it's backlit and slick looking and it's awesome. And they have like Super Nintendo 1. I think they have a Genesis. There's a few anyway. So that's what they make modern iterations of retro consoles. So I do think they'll be able to manufacture enough to match demand, to answer your first question, because I have to imagine that they don't need the same chips that PlayStation and Xbox are struggling to get their hands on right now to play like Super Nintendo games. And I bet you they probably have a little bit more capital in the bank now after their last run of consoles, so they can probably finance it. They have a better idea of what the demand is for them. So I do think if they don't get exactly enough to match the insatiable demand from the retro gaming community, I think they're going to get very close. I will give them that. Will they be able to stop resellers? I'm not sold on, but hopefully if they're manufacturing enough, the resellers are a non-issue because they're making so many, so hopefully that one I'm not quite as confident on, but I think it'll be much easier to get your hands on one than it was last time. Do I have any interest in it? No, but only because I don't have any cartridges anymore. I love them. I love retro game cartridges and stuff, but they take up a ton of room. They've actually gotten stupid expensive. It's just not practical anymore, and I can't afford it, and I don't have the room for the hobby. So I have no use for that because I don't have anything to play on it. And I will be honest, even if I did have a collection of Game Boy games, or maybe Game Boy, because the original Game Boy is a little haggard looking these days. But like a Super Nintendo, a Genesis, NES, whatever, if I was collecting those, I think I would much prefer to play them on their original hardware. So I don't know if those consoles are for me, but I definitely see the appeal of them. And especially that fucking Analog Pocket. That thing looks so... Look it up, you guys, if you're interested. It looks fucking crisp. It's, fucking sick. Ninja Lunchbox 79 wrote in and said, I grew up a Nintendo kid. I'm in my 40s now. I love the classics. I dug out my old 3DS, and what game was in it? A gem of a game called NES Remix. This game is the tits. I had it on the Wii U, and it's probably the one I played the most on that console. Now for my rant. Why in the hell is there not a Volume 2? Also, why is there not an SNES remix? Was I the only one that enjoyed this twist on the classics? I can't be. So, first of all, yes, dude, Ninja Lunchbox, NES Remix is fucking awesome. If you guys never played it, it was on the 3DS and the Wii U, and they basically, all they did is they took a bunch of old NES games, and then they made new little mini games out of them with specific challenges. Like you had Mario 3, and you had 10 seconds to jump on 3 Goombas, or fucking whatever. Just tons of little things. They changed the level around, the controls around. I played the fuck out of NES Remix back in the day. Those games were awesome. And I say those games. I don't know if you knew this, Ninja. There is a second one. You asked why there isn't a sequel, and I don't know if you meant why isn't there an NES Remix 2, or why isn't there something after the first 2 NES remixes. There is an NES Remix time back in the day, and then I kind of just forgot about it, gave up the fight. But these games are so fun. Now you've re-sparked my SNES Remix passion. That will be on my wish list once again. I don't know why we're not getting something else out of this. They can't be too hard to make. They're fucking super popular. Everybody wants another way to play some of those vintage games. Sell us those games in a whole different way. I would buy an SNES Remix like that. I'd probably break my pre-order rule. And, well, no, I probably wouldn't because I'd be downloading. But either way, I'd be all over an SNES Remix. So seriously, if you still play your 3DS or you're one of those 8 people that have a Wii U laying around, look into the games NES Remix and NES Remix 2. I believe you can buy them in a package as well, like where they comes with both of them. They're just awesome. Just super fun. Highly recommend them. Fucking great pull, Ninja Lunchbox. I forgot all about the NES Remix games. I love those games. Darren wrote in. A couple more here. Darren wrote in. If you had to build a Final Fantasy If you had to build a Final Fantasy game using all the Final Fantasy universe, it could only have 4 people in your party. Who do you pick? Who is the villain? And which game's world do they exist in? This is deep. Like, this could be an entire podcast. This is deep. So, okay, so I gotta build a team of 4 Final Fantasy characters versus 1 Final Fantasy villain in 1 Final Fantasy setting. So, for the record, I've played Final Fantasy 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 15. So that's what I'm working with here. So if you're like, where the fuck is Frank from Final Fantasy 13? I never played that game. Or I played Final Fantasy 13 for like 20 minutes. So I'm drawing from what I know. So for my team of 4, I'm going to make the leader Terra from Final Fantasy 6 because I think she's awesome and she's a fucking beast, and the way that she does the morphing thing is Terra's fucking rad. So she's my leader. I'll take Edge from Final Fantasy 4, who was like the smart mouth little arrogant ninja guy, because I think he's hilarious. He's the second in command of my team, and he's a bit of a womanizer, so he could constantly be hitting on Terra and then getting shut down by Terra, and I think that would make a funny storyline. I'll take Steiner from Final Fantasy 9 to be my tank, because I love Steiner. I think the 3 of them would have a great dynamic, because Steiner would probably get fed up with Edge's attitude and tell him to shut his mouth and the way he talks to Terra, but then they could also like team up and do their like the pairing Steiner's attacks with Edge's ninja skills, and they'd fuck shit up and it'd be awesome. And then I need a 4th. And I know that a healer would make sense, but I don't really want to just weigh it down with just a straight up healer. We have the leader in Terra, we've got the mature tank in Steiner, I have the goofy guy in Edge. Now the obvious answer to me is Aerith from Final Fantasy 7 as like a healer, but I really don't like Aerith. I'm not a fan. So you know what? I'm going to take Tifa from Final Fantasy 7, but if I just give her a little bit of healing materia just in case, then I'm good. I don't have a dedicated white mage, but Terra, Tifa, and Edge can all chip in to heal and keep everyone alive, and then Steiner will just be fucking shit up the whole time and throwing his sword around, and so that's my team. Terra, Tifa, Edge, and Steiner. And then for my villain, I gotta go Kefka from Final Fantasy 6 because I think he's the best villain, not only in Final Fantasy, but maybe in gaming history. I know some people think Sephiroth is cooler, and he is cooler. Kefka's just a fucking evil piece of shit, though. And then, you know what? The world will set the game in is Final Fantasy 10 so that I can play Blitzball, but I don't have to listen to Titus laugh. Because I love Blitzball, but I don't really like Titus. So there you go. Good question, Darren. That was hard. I like that. That was good. Yes, excellent. And now finally, one more blower this week before we move on. You guys know that it becomes the distinguished letter time letter for the week, so it's letter time. It's letter time. Brian Robbins wrote in and said, Adam, should I buy a Switch now, or should I wait for the new model at this point, and will the next gen of Nintendo have 4K support? Now, this is something we've talked about a few times on the Twitch stream, over on the Discord. I think it's probably come up on the podcast a little bit before. It's a common question from non-Switch owners. At this point, do you buy a Switch, or do you wait for the upgraded edition? Because the thing is, we all think a Switch Pro is coming. Nintendo's not even straight up denying it anymore. They're just saying it's not coming right now. So, in theory, you could wait for a Switch Pro that never comes. And even if it does come, like the earliest that thing is dropping is holiday 2021. Guaranteed. They just released the Mario version of the Nintendo Switch. That Monster Hunter one is coming out in a few weeks. They sold a mountain of them last year. If they turn around right now and then drop a new, better version of the Switch in like 3 months after everyone just bought these new limited edition ones up, it's not going to go over well. So I do think it's coming. In fact, I have no doubt that a Switch Pro is coming. But I think you're waiting till Christmas this year. I earliest. So I think the first question, and this doesn't just go to Brian, this is to anyone that's on the fence about buying a Switch right now. The first question you have to ask yourself is, are you willing to wait until the holidays knowing that it may not matter? You know, because the thing is the Switch Pro may not even come out then. And now you've just got, you just waited another fucking 8-9 months to buy a Switch, you know? Because the thing is I love Nintendo, but I don't think anything games-wise is coming out on the Switch this year, at least not that they've announced, that's going to topple what's already available. So I don't think waiting is the end of the world. It's a matter of, do you want to wait for something that may not be coming, right? Because if you've gone 4 years already and you've resisted Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Smash Ultimate, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Pokemon Sword and Shield, Animal Crossing New Horizon, Link's Awakening Remake, Fire Emblem Three Houses, Luigi's Mansion, Splatoon 2, etc., etc. If you've already gone so long not giving in to buy those games, there's really nothing coming out in 2021 that's head and shoulders above all those. There's, at least, maybe they'll surprise us, but as of right now, there isn't. So if you haven't been bothered by waiting for 4 years, what's the big deal about waiting for another 10 months to see if you can get a Pro? You know, and then if a Pro doesn't come out at the holidays this year, then maybe you finally just pull the trigger on a regular Nintendo Switch. Because if they're going to release one, they're going to do it close to the holidays. It only makes sense. The thing is Switches aren't going down in value. Neither are the games. We know that, right? Switch games never lose their value. Nintendo Switches are still selling like crazy, so they're not going to be getting cheaper anytime soon. If you wait to buy an Xbox or a PlayStation and scoop one up late in this in that console generation, it's a great way to save money. You can get all the big games for like $10, $20. With the Switch, you are going to pay no matter when you buy it. So don't wait just to save money. That's not going to happen. So if you can't stand waiting anymore, if you're just like, fuck, I really want to play these games, then just pull the trigger and buy one. Because you're looking at least 10 more months, you can catch up on all these games. And if you don't mind waiting, if this hasn't bothered you, then frankly, at this point, I would suggest to continue to wait. If you don't mind, give it another 10 months. See if that Switch Pro comes out by the Christmas, right? You can always buy a Switch now, play it between now and November or whenever the Switch Pro comes out, and then sell the one you bought and use it to help finance your Switch Pro. You can always do that as well, because the Switch is going to hold its value. You'll be able to sell it, no doubt about that. But my suggestion would be, if you can't wait, if you're going crazy, buy one. If you aren't minding waiting, I would say give it until the holidays this year and see if the Switch Pro comes out. And as far as whether or not the Switch Pro is going to have 4K, they have not said. Nobody knows. Rumors are that it's going to do 4K when it's docked, but I would not wait specifically for a Switch Pro in the hopes that you'll be able to play these games in 4K, because that is far from a guarantee. Nintendo is traditionally underpowered compared to what the other guys are doing. And Charlie M. commented on this question on our Patreon page and brought up a great point. Games like Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey look really, really, really good without 4K. Whether you're playing them handheld or on the TV, like 4K would be dope, but it doesn't need them. They look really, really good. So if you're only waiting because you want 4K, I say buy one now. But it really comes down to how patient you are, right? So there you go. For what it's worth, I've had one since launch. I love it. No regrets at all. And if I bought it right now, if I had never played a Nintendo Switch, I bought one today, knowing that I'd probably have to sell it in November to buy a Switch Pro, but I got to play all those games I listed earlier, the Zeldas, the Marios, etc., I'd be totally happy. Because there is at least a year worth of fucking awesome games available on this thing right now. So, hope that helps, Brian. There you go. That's all the blowing this week. Let's get into our Smash Hit segment. Play one, remake one, erase one. And a huge thank you, as always, to Classic Concentration from the NES for unknowingly providing us with our theme music for the show. The rules are simple. You all know this. Each week, I give our listeners 3 retro video games. They can play one as it exists, they can remake one as a modern game, and the third game is erased forever. And this week, since I figured we're already talking Final Fantasy VIII, it just made sense to do the PlayStation Final Fantasy trio of Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX. As always, there are no wrong answers, but there is a right one. I'll get to that in a minute. And just quickly, there's a stipulation this week. I know Final Fantasy VII already has a remake. So the stipulation I added to this round was if you remake Final Fantasy VII, you can keep the remake that exists or you can redo it however you want. If you play it or you erase it, then the Final Fantasy VII remake no longer exists. If you don't choose to remake Final Fantasy VII, then you lose the current remake of Final Fantasy VII. And despite the fact that I bolded that note, I italicized, I don't know how you would say that, but I bolded it, I put it in italics, and that rule, that of you counted on having that remake anyway, and you're all disqualified or at least wrong. And we're going to get into that. Let's go. Amarok wrote in and said, for now, I would give the following answer. Play Final Fantasy IX. I'd say it's aged the least, and it still plays pretty great. Remake Final Fantasy VIII. I would love to experience this game in a similar fashion to the recent Final Fantasy VII remake. And then finally, erase Final Fantasy VII. We have a remake of it now, and it's pretty awesome, and I'm just going to ignore the whole butterfly effect nonsense that usually gets brought up. So now I will say, at least Amarok had the decency to address my rule and say, I'm not playing by your rule, fuck you. All right? I respect that. I can't disqualify you for that because at least you admitted, yeah, I knew this rule existed, but fuck you. So that's fair. And I do agree 100%. Final Fantasy IX has aged the best, and it is absolutely playable today. No question. Totally on board with that, Amarok. Defunct wrote in and said, play Final Fantasy VIII because I haven't gotten to experience it yet, and I would like to. Remake Final Fantasy IX as it's one of the best Final Fantasy games ever made and give it the Final Fantasy VII Remake treatment. Erase Final Fantasy VII because it's already had the perfect remake, and as long as they keep going and make part 2, it's a superior way to experience that game. You did not read the rules, Defunct, and as much as I like you and your cool little creepy-ass avatar, you are disqualified, Defunct. Damn it all. This is why I don't put games that already have remakes in here, because it's impossible to navigate the rules properly. Sons of bitches. Listen, I would love to see Final Fantasy IX remade, and you should play Final Fantasy VIII, but you erase Final Fantasy VII, you erase the remake as well. That's the damn rules. It's my house. James Anderson said all these games are on Game Pass, by the way, which is a fucking great point, James. Thank you very much for pointing that out. He said he would remake Final Fantasy IX, give it the same treatment as 7, it'd be awesome. Final Fantasy IX is a top 3 Final Fantasy game of all time. I would erase Final Fantasy VII. I'm not a big fan of the cyberpunk style anyway, and it was already remade. And then I guess by default, I would play Final Fantasy VIII. It's the only one I haven't played, and I might as well give it a shot in its original form for free on Game Pass. Now, I don't know. I don't know if you're technically disqualified or not, because you erase 7, which means that you erase the remake, but you don't really seem to be that interested in the remake anyway. So if you're not DQ'd, you just have to live with no Final Fantasy VII remake. Final Fantasy IX is absolutely top 3 game, no question. And I really hope that you and anyone listening to this that has not played Final Fantasy VIII considers giving it a chance after the podcast. We'll get there in a second, but I hope you do. Speaking of those disqualifications, our resident delinquent Slick Rick said, so this week on Play None, Erase None, Remake 3, I would remake all 3. Final Fantasy VII Remake is fucking awesome so far. Final Fantasy VIII has plenty of things that are wrong, but the game was good and had a lot to offer. It had a bad rap, some of it deserved and some of it isn't. Remake it. Final Fantasy IX is the best Final Fantasy game. Remaking it in the Final Fantasy VII Remake style has me foaming at the mouth. Now listen here, Rick. I agree with you that 100% all 3 of these games could use a remake, and I would buy the fuck out of all 3 of these games remade. But Play None, Erase None, Remake 3 is not my show. That sounds like some shitty goddamn Fox game show that airs at like fucking 11 o'clock at night and nobody watches it, and all the commercials are ads for lawyers saying, have you ever been in an accident with asbestos or something? And no, so you are fucking qualified, sir. It is Play 1, Remake 1, Erase 1. Play by the rules. Bam. Zane Donovan said, okay, I would play Final Fantasy VII as it already has a remake and it's amazing. I would remake Final Fantasy IX. That whole game would be so insane with current graphics. And I would erase Final Fantasy VIII. The whole story doesn't do much for me. Also, Adam, I hope you do a recording of part 2 for Final Fantasy VI. So, that's fair. And, dude, a remake of 9, a lot of people seem to think that would be awesome. And for the record, Zane, I absolutely want to revisit Final Fantasy VI at some point. I don't know when. Probably like the 200s of this show, but down the road at some point we will revisit Final Fantasy VI. Dave McGee said I would play Final Fantasy VII. I know some people don't feel the same way, but I adore this game. It was the first game I bought when I got my PlayStation. I have such nostalgic ties for this game. Staying up all night with my buddies, drinking and trying to beat the Ruby and Emerald weapons, or accidentally forgetting to save, or my memory card failing, putting me into a rage. I have so many memories attached to it, so it stays as it is. Remake Final Fantasy IX, updated graphics, make it quicker loading into battles and touching up the sounds. It'd be gorgeous. Fuck Final Fantasy VIII. Fuck that dumpster fire piece of crap with its stupid card game and the stupid gunblade. Erase this game, erase the people who came up with this idea, and erase their parents as well. I don't. Have we ever had someone say they want to erase a game developer's parents? I think that's first on the show. But I'm not joking. Like that reaction is like a sizable chunk of our community's opinions toward Final Fantasy VIII. People that hate it fucking despise it. I want to interject on what you're saying, but I'll save it. I will say Gunblades are dumb. Agreed. But that said, none of those are what I would do. A whole bunch of you did have the same order as me, just with different logic. Seriously, R on P said remake Final Fantasy VII because I haven't played the remake yet. I love the original. I also read the rules and don't think I'm above Adam's Law. Thank you very much. Play Final Fantasy IX because of the two remaining. It's the one that didn't suck. Erase Final Fantasy VIII because it's terrible. And if I ever see the word junction in a game again, I might rage quit immediately. So just by saying playing by Adam's Law, that'll get you read on this show straight up. Well done, R on P. Stupid Monkey said remake Final Fantasy VII because I love that game. The remake, I mean, although I love the original as well. Play Final Fantasy IX because I really want to someday. I never got around to finishing it because I'm a heathen. Also, my PlayStation 1 died back in the day. Erase Final Fantasy VIII in the more spectacularly violent way because Squall is an emo loser who deserves it, and the whole we were friends as kids and somehow forgot twist was just dumb. So, we're going to get into that amnesia thing in a minute, but you should definitely play 9, Stupid Monkey. That would make you smart, Monkey. G9 PSX. Sorry, there's a lot of these. I try to read as many as I can. It's my fucking show. I always worry this is going too long. And I'm like, is this my fucking... I have no sponsors. Nobody. I don't... the only person I owe it even a little bit of an exclamation to is the Patreons. And if you sign up for our Patreon, you obviously don't hate what I do. So, fucking read as many as I want. Fuck you, Bill Gates. You know what you did. G9 PSX. Wow, I didn't even make a suggestion for the hot dog screwing Adam edition of Expansion Pass, but I feel like you're taking your revenge out on me anyway. Remake Final Fantasy VII. The original was my favorite game of all time for over 20 years. Nothing could touch it until the remake came along. It was everything my 10 to 30-year-old brain imagined it would be. I wouldn't even change anything of the remake now. Anyone complaining about the textures in that game needs to go back and take a look at where it came from. For me, it's like a cold beer in the pool next to a beach that's hosting a volleyball competition. Sheer bliss. It's pretty intense. G9 said he'd play Final Fantasy IX. Is for PS1 era Final Fantasy games, you can't go wrong with the last entry when they knew exactly what they were doing and what the console could do. And then erase Final Fantasy VIII. Something has to go, and it sure as hell isn't going to be 7 or 9. Audio Squall. The logic of your Gunblade gives me nightmares. This is actually incredibly close to my exact reasoning. James Clark said the same. He said, I would play Final Fantasy IX because that one was the only... I would play Final Fantasy IX because that one was only slightly better than Final Fantasy VIII in my opinion. I would remake Final Fantasy VII to keep the remake. It's a masterpiece. And so regrettably, I would erase Final Fantasy VIII. It pains me because I feel the story elements in the game were better than 9, but the gameplay overall and some of the whining and brooding got under my skin at times. I agree with everything you're saying here, James. Ninja Lunchbox had the same order as well. You win as well. Everyone that just said that got it right. I personally would play Final Fantasy IX. I love this game. I've said it many times. I think it's probably the best offering in the series. I would love a remake of it, but I also think it looks very good for a PS1 game. You know, just like games that came out near the end of the NES life cycle, the SNES life cycle, games that came out near the end of the PS1 look pretty decent. You know, developers had a handle on what they could do at that point. So, as much as I would love to remake Final Fantasy IX, I don't think it'll be as good as a Final Fantasy VII remake. So I would remake Final Fantasy VII, and I wouldn't change one fucking thing about the remake they have going right now, aside from maybe letting me play the whole thing at once. I think Final Fantasy VII remake is spectacular. I think the original Final Fantasy VII, while a classic, needed the facelift the most of these 3 games. It's the one I'm the most nostalgic for, so seeing it remade was just the coolest shit. Very special. Can't touch that. And then I would erase Final Fantasy VIII. Don't take this as I'm about to shit all over this game, because I am not. When we get into the discussion, I think this game does a lot right. But I'm not nearly as nostalgic for it as 7, and I don't think it's as good as 9. And it's just that simple. It's the Lisa Simpson of the PS1 Final Fantasies. It's the middle kid, right? Final Fantasy 7 is Bart, Final Fantasy 9 is Maggie. And we all know if you were going to kill off a kid from the Simpsons family, it's going to be Lisa, right? We can all agree on that. You can't kill a baby, and Bart's too cool. So Lisa is Final Fantasy 8 gotta go. So there you go. Thank you everyone that played. I try to read as many of them as I can. Let me get into what I've been playing, and then we'll talk a lot of Final Fantasy VIII. I have mostly been playing God of War on my PS4, and I think I said my piece a few minutes ago in the intro there. It's excellent. I'm thinking about dedicating an episode of Expansion Pass to it when I'm done, even though it's a few years old, just because I have so many positive things to say about it, and I know how many members of our community really, really like it as well. If you've not not sure if I'm going to do a hard playthrough or not. I might try. I don't want to come on here and say it's better than Mario Kart because I think they're very different. I think Mario Kart is relaxing and chill and kind of a party game. Crash Team Racing is intense, man. You have to get good or you're fucked. And it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. But I'm really enjoying it. I like the challenge that it brings. I got to fire up the original soon. I have it on my PlayStation Classic. So we can cover it here on Remember the Game because I'm really digging Crash Team Racing. And then my girlfriend and I have been playing Super Mario 3D World on the Switch together. We're into World 7. We got 100% of everything so far. We played it on the Wii U back in the day together. We had a good time. Now we're playing on the Switch. It's really fun. If you're poo-pooing on it for being a re-release, but you haven't played it, you're missing out on a great Mario game, man. Mario 3D World is awesome. I'll probably review it on Expansion Pass sometime in March after I get a chance to play Bowser's Fury and see how that goes. And that's what I've been playing. That'll do it. Let's talk some Final Fantasy VIII. And as you guys know, I like to give you nerds a chance to share your thoughts on games before I indulge myself and ramble for a while. And I want you to see what I'm saying about the hate that this game gets from some people. Mr. Satan wrote in and said, all I have to say is fucking gunblades. Dumbest weapon ever. Now, just quickly, Mr. Satan, I don't think that I mentioned it on the podcast. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I did. So just quickly, if I didn't, I would like to say for the record that I agree. If you never played Final Fantasy VIII, some of the characters have swords that are also guns, and I think they're just stupid. I totally agree. I think it's a dumb weapon. Michael Mathis over on Patreon did reply to Mr. Satan's comment and point out that Cloud's Buster Sword is kind of stupid too. And you're not wrong, Michael, but I can get past the giant swords, like the Buster Sword and things. Once you turn the sword into a gun, then you lost me. That was a little much. So, Keegs wrote in and just said, it's a turd. I wasn't able to fit Keegs into Play 1, Remake 1, Erase 1, but he basically said the same thing over there. He is clearly of the opinion that Final Fantasy VIII is a piece of feces. Brian Robbins said, I used to make it to the end of the second or third disc and my save would always go corrupt. I remember being so deflated as a kid, but this and Final Fantasy X are still close to my heart. For the record, I don't think I would ever go back to a long, grindy RPG if I lost my file that late in the game. I think I'd just be done. Darren wrote in and said, I love the original Final Fantasy and decided to try to play the, quote, current games, which at the times were Final Fantasy 7 and 8. So I bought both of them, and after a couple hours playing on each one, I just didn't care. And I know this makes me a pariah in some people's eyes, but the stories just didn't make me want to continue. The graphics were nice for the time, but like you often say, Adam, they just don't hold up. Plus, fuck random encounters. They always seem to happen when you can't heal or when you're just trying to get to a place quickly. It is so annoying. So, as you can see, not a lot of love for Final Fantasy VIII in the community, but it has its defenders, and its defenders are fiercely loyal. Dan T from the band Vertical Noise, who provides our theme song over on Game Patch, wrote in. Now, I did have to edit Dan's comment down a little bit because it was a little beefy, but it was also incredibly well written. I see the passion, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Dan says, this was the first game I played at a young age that wasn't movie licensed or for kids. It completely blew my mind and opened up my eyes to the possibilities gaming had to offer. Replaying it as an adult several times, the thing that strikes me the most is the missed potential that I think it had, probably owing to the fact that they only had a year and a half to develop this after Final Fantasy VII, and they didn't have the veteran leadership of Sakaguchi, who was busy working on the Spirits Within film. All the systems and story have the beginnings of something special, but just can't seem to stick the landing for me on most counts, and often end up conflicting with each other. The junction system offers up a great deal of options and customization that the series hadn't seen before, but it's so open that it allowed savvy players to break it and the game. With regards to the story, it starts off strong, throwing a group of teenager soldiers into a plot of warring nations and political conflict that's way over their heads, that had the potential to explore some interesting avenues that the series hadn't been down before, but by the end of Disc 2, it completely shits the bed, jumps the shark, and descends into flying schools, amnesia-causing summons, and time-traveling nonsense. I've finished this game many times over 20 years, and I still couldn't explain exactly what's going on in the last third of the games. I can see why it's so divisive, and I wouldn't even necessarily say it's a great game, but I still much prefer it to Final Fantasy VII, even if it's just for the fact that they tried something radically different, and for that it will always hold a special place in my pantheon of gaming. Well said, Dan. I don't usually read comments that long, but it was just so well written. I know the passion. I understand. So there you go. Good stuff. The thing about what Dan said is I absolutely think it's possible to find fault in this game, but still like it anyway. And that's what I'm about to do for an hour and a half with my pal Andre. I'm going to cue up some music. And we are finally going to talk Final Fantasy VIII, which originally debuted worldwide on February 11th, 1999. Enjoy the podcast, everybody. Here we go. Okay, so joining me via the blank phone this week is my pal Andre. So we're just gonna get how are you? We'll get this out of the way. How you doing?
I'm doing good, buddy.
Okay.
Pretty good. It's a nice Monday, relaxing.
Cold, fucking cold, because it's Edmonton.
It's warmer than it has been though.
It's slowly getting there.
It's warming up.
And we're talking Final Fantasy VIII, and you guys, listen, so many of you guys. So if you don't know, and I will have already explained all this in the intro, but Final Fantasy VIII won our Patreon poll in January, and then I know that this is going live at the end of February, but this is not a short game, and I had to play through it. I try to give games the benefit of the doubt, play through the whole thing. So I got right to the final boss. I'm going to get this out of the way. I did not beat the final boss. We're going to get into all that as we go through this. I got to be honest with you, Andre. I'm a little bit not nervous, but a little apprehensive that this episode is going to not live up to the hype, because I know so many people have opinions on this game. So many people have been asking about this episode. So many people have been like, what do you think? Do you like it? Do you hate it? I was like, you got to listen to the episode to find out. So I'll share my opinions on this game in a minute, but I'm just going to give you the floor for a second, because you have been a staunch defender of Final Fantasy VIII since the first time it came up on the show. And this game has been coming up in the Remember the Game Industries lunchroom for about a year and a half now. And you have been a staunch defender, despite the fact that I would say 60 to 70% of the community hates this game. So I'll give you the floor until you're done blabbing. Why do you like or hate this game? I know you like it. So just quickly, don't get into details, but why are you defending this game?
A big part of my love for this game, like, I played this when it first came out. This game, I very much enjoyed it. I think I'll say this honestly, when I was originally playing this way back in, was it late 90s when this game came out, I played it, I would rent it a lot from Uptown Video in Morinville. And the thing is, like, you don't finish a game like this in a weekend, especially if you're not playing it, unless I was playing it all over, but I maybe got 2 discs in every time I did, and for some reason I kept restarting every time I'd buy it, because I'd lose my place and not. Again, it's that you lose your place if you're not playing it all the time, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually you finish the game, and I love this game up until disc 4.
Okay, and we'll get into that, because I can understand. So just sorry. One cool thing about renting PlayStation games is that we've all had the stories on this show about, I would rent fucking Final Fantasy 2 on the Super Nintendo over and over and over again, but every time I rented it, I had to restart it because the file had been erased. The cool thing about renting a PlayStation game was, as much as I don't like memory cards, it was pretty nice that your save was safe. You know what I mean? As long as you kept it on your memory card, you could re-rent this in 6 months and your file would be there. So that's the cool thing, at least.
The difference is, though, when I started renting this as soon as it came to the store, right?
Right.
But you'd rent it for whatever your time it was, and if it was 3 days or 7 days, whatever it was. But then other people could put it on reserve.
Right.
So it didn't mean you could just go, unless you had multiple copies, you couldn't just go back and get the game again.
Yeah.
So there'd be times where I wouldn't get the game again for another month or longer. So, and I'm the kind of person that's like, I don't know exactly where I was.
Yeah.
I wasn't good I would sit there and go, what am I doing? And then I just restart the game.
And dude, you know what?
It sounds dumb, but that's who I was.
I'm willing to bet you that a fucking vast majority of the people listening to this podcast right now have at some point put down an RPG, come back to it, and been like, I have no fucking idea what's going on. And to be honest with you, and we're going to get into this game might even be worse for that, because it's not just a matter of where do you have to go to keep the game moving, but the strategies you have going with what magic have you drawn? What do your card situation look like?
What's your junction weird?
Yeah, so like when I started playing this, I was like, I have got to get through this in not one sitting, but like in one playthrough without pausing and coming back to it. Like I wanted to play God of War on my PS4, and I was like, I gotta finish Final Fantasy VIII first because I will never be able to figure out what the fuck was happening otherwise. So.
Well, I have this on Switch. I've had it on Switch since it came out on Switch a couple years ago when it came out on Switch.
Yeah.
And I picked it up and I started playing through it, and I got to a point, and then I kind of petered off and started playing other games, and then I go back to play it again, and I'm like, where am I?
Yeah.
I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
All right, restart.
And the thing is, like, it's not like the map in this game is not. It's surprisingly small. I thought maybe that's just. I don't know why I think that, because I guess it's not really that much smaller than most other Final Fantasy games, but I really just felt like there was a lot of dead space, like a lot of empty space in this game. So
there's a lot of just traveling in this game.
Yeah,
that it's just that open world run. It doesn't feel like I play 7 or I play 9, and it feels like I leave one community. It's not that far of a jaunt to get to the next cave.
Yeah.
The major cave, or that next town, or the next main objective. This one, it feels like you're riding around for a bit.
Yeah.
It may not be everybody's thing, but I felt like there's a lot of aimless moving around and going to different places, kind of aimlessly.
But for the most part, you like it. Obviously, that's why you kept re-renting it. You liked it.
Oh, because I don't know. I grew. It was hit me at that perfect point where I was like 11, 12 years old.
So
in that preteen era, and it was just that fun game.
Okay, so that's okay. So I mean, I'm a couple years older than you. I played Final Fantasy VII when it came out. I played it in high school. I loved it, just like so many people that are probably listening to this right now liked it. I'm not gonna. We are not comparing this game to Final Fantasy VII. All right. The only time I'm bringing up Final Fantasy VII is right now, and the reason I'm bringing Final Fantasy VII up is to set the stage. The reason I had no opinions on this game until 2 months ago when I started playing it was because I didn't play it when it came out, and the reason I didn't play it when it came out was because I played the shit out of Final Fantasy VII just like all of us nerds from our era did. And then when Final Fantasy VIII came out, I looked at it. My buddy Mike had it, and I saw it. Like, I saw the gameplay, the graphics, the characters. I had no idea about the junctioning system, the drawing magic, none of that. I just saw it, and I was like, this just looks boring. Like, it looks so mature and adult, and like Final Fantasy VII is like kind of zany, and you've got these fucking weird characters, like a dude with a gun on his arm, and Red 13 is fucking, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. And then you play Final Fantasy VIII, and it's just, here's a whole bunch of mature, I guess, like high school style students. There's no weird animals for you to control. There's no it's not colorful. It's not bright. And I wrote it off because I was like, this is just, listen, whether you all like it or whether you don't like it, whether you like Final Fantasy VIII or you don't like Final Fantasy VIII, it is always going to be, not fairly, but it is always going to be Final Fantasy VII's little brother. It just is. It is always going to be in the shadow of Final Fantasy VII. And I'm sure a lot of you either don't like it because it's not Final Fantasy VII, or you're like I am, and you just skipped over it altogether because it was not Final Fantasy VII.
Well, this game, it's in the shadow of Final Fantasy VII because as big as that game was, it was launched to PlayStation.
Yeah.
And that game is just and not my favorite Final Fantasy game of all time, but a wonderful Final Fantasy game. And then 8 comes out, and it's lackluster. And then I think it gets outshone by number 9.
Yeah, I agree.
You know my feelings on episode 9.
Yeah,
or on Final Fantasy 9.
That's its other problem, right? Is that it's trapped on a console with Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 9, and I don't give a shit what anybody says. Like, you can argue that Final Fantasy 7 is overrated. I argue that. You can argue that for whatever reason. I don't know why you wouldn't like Final Fantasy 9, but maybe some people don't. Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 9 are two of the crown jewels of the Final Fantasy crown. They just are. And Final Fantasy 8 is kind of stuck in the middle. It goes totally off the rails with its style and with what it does and everything about the mechanics, everything. We're going to get all that now in a minute. And so I skipped it forever. And so I finally sat down to play it. And the reason I asked you about your experiences with it, Andre, is because you said you used to rent it all the time, which means you would have played the original PlayStation version.
Yes, very much so.
I can't. So, I'll answer the $1 million question. Everyone's like, do you like it? Do you hate it? What the fuck? They're yelling at their phone. They're like, it's 10 minutes into it. I like it. I actually like this game quite a bit. I don't love it. I think, and we're going to get into all of it, I think there is a awesome set of mechanics in this game that is just buried under a lot of problems. And we'll get into that. But I love the core. I'd love to see a remake not a remaster, which is what I played, but a full-blown remake where they make it all good. Because I liked a lot of it. But the first thing I wanted to bring up, and the reason I wanted to tie back to the original PlayStation version, is I played the remaster. And on the remaster, if you've not played it, guys, you can set the time to triple speed, the game to triple speed, almost any time you want, minus some cutscenes. You can just set it to triple speed during battles, during the overmap, during everything. I cannot fathom playing this game without that triple speed. Between the number of summons you summon, between all the fucking traveling, as you said, there's a lot of long traveling on the overworld. Between all of that, running around the fucking gardens, that first garden you're in, the one you start the game in.
Yeah, Balam.
The idea of doing all that without that triple speed to run through, I'll be honest with you guys, if I was reviewing this exact same game without the remaster perk of being able to set it to triple speed, I would have come on to this show and ripped this game a new asshole, because it would have been just, what a fucking slog. So before we get any further into this, I'm going to tell every single one of you listening, if you want to play this, if you have never played it and we make you want to play it, if maybe you played it and you didn't like it back in the day and maybe we convince you to give it another try, for the love of everything that is good on this planet, play the remastered version with the triple speed. I ignored all the warnings on the original Final Fantasy when I played the NES one, and everyone was like, don't play the original, play a remaster, and I was like, you guys are all idiots. I'm going to go with the tried and true traditional method. Never again. Jesus God, play the remastered version. Okay?
Like, I remember playing through this as a kid, and there are sometimes you're sitting there, especially with some of the GFs, especially in the end game, with some of the Guardian forces at the end, and some of their animations, and we all know this from Final Fantasy VII, and that some of those animations went on forever.
Oh.
It's just as bad in FF8.
I got it. Yeah.
And some of the dialogue, if you play it on regular speed, I find the dialogue very, very slow in this game.
It is. It's so fucking slow. I put every moment that I could have that triple speed on, I did it. And it wasn't because I hated it. It wasn't because I was like, this sucks, I just want to get it over with. I was like, just
more
for the love of fuck, hurry up. You know what this game is? You know when you're at the mall and you get stuck behind the slow walker and you can't do anything to get around them, and you just, every time you try to go around them, they kind of move, and that's what they were like. For the love of God, speed it up. This is so slow. And the thing is I played Final Fantasy VII back in the day, and it didn't have a triple speed. And Andre, you fucking nailed it. And I promise I'm not even trying to compare it to Final Fantasy VII at this point. But we all remember summoning Knights of the Round and then sitting there for 3 minutes while that fucking summon it. Like, listen, if Square is listening to this right now, please just fucking start letting us skip summon animations. Please. You don't have to skip them, but just make it, you can skip cutscenes, like press X to skip the cutscene or whatever. For the love of God, we don't need to see Ifrit fucking jump up in the sky, call that meteor, do his little dance, flex his fucking pecs, and then throw the meteor down to the ground 800 times. Just let us skip it, please. The only problem with the triple speed is that at times I wouldn't stop it fast enough, and it would blow past how much damage I did, and then I'd be like, oh fuck, I didn't see if that was a good attack or not. So then I would have to slow it down and watch. You know what I mean? But
you can miss things with the triple speed. But honestly, playing it when I started replaying it do this show, and I couldn't imagine playing it without the triple speed.
No, me neither.
Through most parts, just moving around, building, just trying to get around stuff. It makes it so much easier.
Yeah, because this is a very you nailed it, Andre. It's a slow game, and it's not just the running around in the overworld, and it's not just the fucking summon animations, although the summon animations are slow. The thing is depending on how you play it, and listen, before we get into this, and Andre, if you want to talk, if at some point if we go this way and you want to go there, that's fine. A ton of you were offering me advice. A ton of you were telling me how to cheese the game and how to max out your character in the first hour so that you could one-hit everybody. I did not do any of that. I did not read any guides about that. I turned down advice from you guys on how to do that. I'm not shitting on anyone that wants to play the game that way, but I was like, I want to play it on the up. I don't enjoy playing games that way. So I was like, I'm going to play this just on the without cheesing it or anything. And without doing any of that, if you've never played Final Fantasy VIII, and I guess this is a great way to segue into some of the mechanics, probably the biggest mechanic or the most infamous thing that this game is known for is that you don't cast spells by just using magic points. In Final Fantasy VII, you had materia. In Final Fantasy IX, you had, I don't remember what those things were called, but you would equip them and then it would teach you spells.
It's same sort of level as materia.
Whereas in this game, everyone can cast any spell they want, but you draw.
They drew it, yeah.
So and when I say draw, you literally, one of your attack options is you can attack, you can use an item, you can use magic, you can draw. And so you draw, and you can pretty well draw from every enemy in the game, I think. And then you click draw on them.
Pretty most any enemy will either give you something.
Yeah, and
some of them are useless. Some of the spells in this game, but it's how you junction them.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not an expert at junctioning. I can tell you that 100%. I just know that Quake was the best thing ever to get your health up.
Well, we'll get into the junctioning in a minute, because here's the thing. This game, and this is what I was worried about with this fucking game, is it is so complex, the fucking mechanics of it. So and I'll explain what I mean. So you have to draw magic. So every enemy in the game, basically, you can draw from them. And basically, if you've ever played any other RPG, you can steal from a lot of enemies. It's kind of like that, but you click draw, you click the enemy, and then it shows you what spells that enemy is stocking. And it's usually 2, 3, 4 spells. And like Andre said, it could be fucking scan and cure. It could be Thundaga, Fire-aga, whatever the fuck they call it. I liked it better when it was Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3, but that's just me. But they'll have life, literally every Final Fantasy spell you can think of is in some of these enemies, and you draw them out, and when you draw the magic from them, then you stock it like items. And so you could draw fire from this enemy, and then it'll say Squall drew 4 fires. And what that means is I now have 4 copies of the fire spell that I can then cast, and every time I cast it, that spell goes down by 1. And I know some people hate it. I really like the concept of that. My first major criticism of this game, I guess it ties back to the slowness, which was my first major criticism, is that it can really, really become a slog if you don't cheese the system, and we'll get into this in a minute, but later on in the game, you can turn, cards and items and stuff like that into magic, or you can turn weaker magic into stronger magic. But at the core concept of the game, you're just walking around pulling out anywhere from 1 to 7 or 8 spells from characters at a time, and those spells max out at you can have 100 in your inventory. And when I first started playing it, I was confused as fuck, and we're gonna get into that. But once I figured out how the systems work, I was like, this is really cool. But then you realize just how monotonous and how tedious drawing the spells out of enemies are.
I was one of the people and I still am to this day, because sometimes I just want to play through the game. I don't have the tediousness to deal with it. I like auto junctioning. It saves a lot of time, but if you want that perfect stat, it's refining. You get certain items that you can get, so you can get these HP boosts and stuff.
Yeah.
And that also set up with a certain item you put on it gives you an HP boost. And there's a lot of intricacies to how you junction your items, and your guardian forces do follow into it too. And because as they go up, you get your HP junctions and things like that.
And that's my second criticism, is that this game is, and because we haven't explained and I know a lot of people don't even understand this, so we're gonna explain what junctioning and stuff is. But it's just so needlessly over complicated. If you played, and the only reason I'm not comparing it to Final Fantasy VII, I'm using it as a reference because I know a lot more people have probably played 7 than 8. When you played Final Fantasy VII, when you equipped materia, the more the materia was leveled up, the more AP that materia had, the more effect it had on your base stats. You could equip a spell that would give you more HP, or would give you more attack power, or whatever. And in this game, what you do is you pick up Guardian Forces, GFs, and we'll get into those in a second. And then
your summons.
They're your summons, and you equip them to your characters. And then what they do is allow you to junction, to apply magic to your stats. And so, listen, if this sounds so complicated, this is maybe my single biggest issue with Final Fantasy VIII. I don't think it explains these systems well, and I spent the first 7 or 8 hours of this game Googling and reading, and I didn't want to read too much to have the game spoiled or to have all these like, well, just equip 200 Quake to your HP and you'll be at 12,000 HP and you'll never die. Like I didn't want to know how to cheat the system. I just wanted to understand how the system worked, and they don't explain it well. And they have in-game tutorials, and I've played a lot of RPGs, and I understand how RPGs work, but this system is so out of the box of anything that they have done, and they just don't explain it well, and it is so infuriating. And then one day, dude, I was sitting here, I'm playing the game, I'm enjoying the concept, but I'm like, so I'm drawing magic, but I don't what am I supposed to cast the magic? And then all of a sudden, and we're gonna get into this, we'll explain how I will do my absolute best to explain it to anyone that's never played this game. All of a sudden, it all just every piece of the puzzle fell into place, and it clicked, and it all made sense. And once you understand the systems of this game and how it works, in my opinion, that was when my mentality and my attitude toward this game shifted from what in the fuck is this to like, this has a mountain of potential. And I still feel like that to this day. I would love to see this system come back in another game, much more refined. But the basics of the game,
but with a lot of explanation, if you're ever going to use this game,
dude, like, did you
explain this better?
Without getting into like the specifics of the systems, because I want to go through them slowly to kind of explain them. But did you understand this game as a kid? Like, I'm curious. Like, did it make sense?
No. Auto junction was just exactly what it did, and I could figure out that, yes, I figured out the point of once my GS learned abilities, I'd get the HP boost and the strength boost, and then I understood to that. But like, I didn't understand, like I would just auto junction everything, I would just put the common thing in there. Right. What I didn't realize, like I didn't look for all like the best combinations and the best items to put with, like it's like a puzzle just to play this game.
It is. If you
want to play it at the max abilities, it's a big puzzle, and there's a lot of like side questing you have to do then.
Yeah.
Because you have to grind for guild to get certain items, to refine them into other items, to refine them into other items, so that you get the max stat boosts.
So okay, so I think we've explained the magic. You draw magic out of people. Every character in the game can stock every spell in the game, and you can stock up to 100 castings of that spell. So once you've got 100 fire, that's all the fire you can have, and then in theory, you could cast fire 100 times, okay? Now, the next part of the game is that you get these GFs, which, as Andre mentioned, they're your summons. And there's, I don't know, fucking 12 or 16 or whatever amount of them in the game. And you can miss a whole bunch of them. Like, they're not, it's like the red materia in Final Fantasy VII. You can absolutely, I missed some GFs. Like, you can miss them. But as you find them, you junction them to a character, which basically means you pair them with a character. So for argument's sake, when you get a hold of the Shiva GF, so when we say the GF, we mean the Shiva summon. When you get a hold of the Shiva GF, you can then pair it to one of your characters, which is junctioning it. Once you junction it to a character, you get a couple of things. Number one, you can then summon Shiva during battles, and then Shiva will do like her attack, whatever that character's ability is. The far more complex and frankly more important thing that they can do is that they give you the ability to start using magic to upgrade your stats. And what I mean by that in the most basic concept, which again I don't feel this game does a good job of explaining, is that different GFs can help you upgrade different stats. Okay, so for argument's sake, and I don't know if this is actually one of the abilities she has, but I'm just using it for the sake of explaining it. Shiva might have the ability to junction magic to your HP. And so what that means is once I pair Shiva to a character, I can then take I can take a whole bunch of the spells that character has stocked by drawing them out of enemies and use those spells on my HP. And so what that means is, like, let's just say for argument's sake, I have 100 cures, and Shiva lets me pair magic with my HP. I can take those 100 cures, put them on my HP, and now my HP maybe goes from 1,000 hit points to 3,000 hit points. And then every time I actually cast a spell of cure, my maximum HP would go down a little bit because I would have 99 cures paired to it, or 98, or whatever. And
it actually actively affects your HP.
Right, and
every
it's not
time you use magic.
And the thing is different GFs will allow you to pair magic to different stats. So not every GF will let you pair magic to every stat, but you can pair magic to your HP. You can pair magic to your strength, your defense, vitality, your luck, your speed, all of those different things. Okay, and so like Andre said, to me it's both a great thing and a horrible thing that between you've got 6 or 7 characters to pick from, you've got a dozen or whatever it is GFs. Each GF can do different things and unlock, and the GFs level up just like your characters, and as the GFs level up, they unlock new abilities which might allow you to junction magic to different stats, and then each spell that you junction to each stat affects it in a different way, and the more of that spell you have does, like, just for argument's sake, equipping 20 life magics to your HP might raise your HP more than equipping 80 cures, just as an example. So it
very
becomes
much so. They're different ones had the different ability. Like, it's surprisingly, but nobody explains this to you. It's so hard to figure out that life will be better than cure, but then Quake somehow is better than a life.
So, like, and the cool thing is that you can, like, so let's just say you're on Squall and you want to junction a spell to his HP. So you click that, and then you can literally go through every spell that Squall has, and it'll show you, like, you don't actually have to equip it to see how it'll affect your stats. It'll just show you, like, this is what your new HP will be. And you can scroll through your magic, and
it'll either show a white number meaning it's the same, it'll bring up a red number showing it's being lowered to that number, or it's going to give you a green number showing it's going to go higher.
Right, and so
you can actively compare, which helps.
But I really like the concept of it. I think that's a really, really cool idea.
Great idea.
If I have a criticism-ish of that, it would be that, like, I actually found magic to be not useless, but it's far less I was not casting a lot of magic in this game because I would rather keep the spells and equip them and up my other stats and then just attack instead.
Well, the thing is, depending on how you boost it, you can boost your strength and defense and your vitality and luck to a point where you don't need magic unless there's only a small amount of enemies in the game that require you to actually use your magic to defeat them.
Yeah, like the magic almost becomes more about drawing it and then equipping it. But then this goes back, and I hope that how I've explained it makes sense, because it was really, really confusing to me at first. And then you can also equip, like, you can equip magic to, like, your attack. So then, you know, if you equip fire to your attack, then you always attack with a fireman element. Or you can equip, you know, fucking fire to your defense, so then you absorb fire and magic and stuff like that, right?
Like, the best, I found the coolest was junctioning to your defense. So, like, if you knew you were going into an area where, like, say there's going to be multiple, if you know like, we're going too early, and you know that there's going to be fire enemies or anything, something's going to be affecting away, you know what you need to junction for.
Yeah. So now so now if you're wondering, like, well, then what's the point of grinding? Because you're, like, do your characters even level up? Because your characters do level up, and their stats do go up a little, but the vast majority, I'm telling you right now, without even knowing how all the experts and how the people that know this game inside and out can beat it, I promise you, most of them would agree that they would rather have a level, literally, at the end of this fucking 4-disc, 40-hour game, they would rather have a party that were all level 10 to 15, but had the right magic and the right junctions equipped, than they would rather have a party that's level 99 that's poorly equipped. Not only because it would the level 10 people would be stronger because they'd have the right magic equipped with the right GS and the right combinations, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But because the enemies in this game level up with your character.
Level scale. Yeah, level scaling, which to me, I can play this game. Like, I can. The only thing you really need to grind for in this game is if you find the right enemy who you want to draw a certain ability from.
Right.
And some you can just, if you can keep yourself alive, you can just keep drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing from
you could have a 20-minute fight against an enemy and not touch the enemy and just have all three of your characters sitting there sucking fucking life magics out of them until they're all filled up.
And you just every few turns you throw a potion at a guy, you throw a potion at another one. Like honestly, just keep item on, draw, and whatever else you want, and you can sit there for 20 minutes just drawing from the right enemy.
But now I will say, because to me that's one of the big criticisms people have thrown at it, is that the grinding is useless, which I semi agree with, and I'll get into that. But I will say I would love to see more RPGs adapt the level scaling mechanic, even if you made it optional. I think ideally that's what it would be, is it would be something you could turn on or off, maybe even when you start the game, just like how you have to pick a difficulty, or you can turn on permadeath in some games, because I understand why some people would prefer to play it in classic RPG style, where if you just stick in an area and you grind and you get to a point where your characters are so much stronger than the enemies, you're steamrolling through the game. Some people prefer to play their game that way, and I totally understand that. I loved the idea that, in theory, at any given point, enemies were around the same strength as me. And then it came down, because this game really comes down to how well you can junction and pair magic and do all that kind of stuff.
Well,
and I like that a lot.
They're at your strength by level, not by, like you said, you put the right abilities together, you far outclass your level.
Oh, totally.
Like your power far outclass ability if you have the right summons equipped with the right abilities, with the right magic magic in the right place. Like you could be on disc 1 if you go to the right places and draw from the right enemies, and you could be like ready for the end game.
Dude, you could take my party that is right now. I have a save file where I'm literally right at the save point before the final boss in the game. And you could take my save file and have me play against an expert that's level 5. And that expert would feed me my lunch because they've junctioned better than me. Like, that is such... And that is what really frustrates, I don't know what the word is about this game. It's the fact that, like, this system is the game. This system is so critical to the game, and I just don't think they do a good job explaining it. Particularly when you keep in mind that I promise you, a vast majority of the people that sat down to play Final Fantasy VIII played Final Fantasy VII. So they're coming in thinking this game is going to work like Final Fantasy VII.
So grind, get
right.
level up, and but it's not it.
And then you realize, like, oh, I've grinded my characters up to level 80, but they haven't gotten any stronger because you haven't been worrying about finding magic and finding GFs and junctioning it all together. Now, Andre mentioned one of the options in the game is that you can set it to auto junction, and then you can basically just tell the game what concept you want to focus on.
Attack, defense, like health.
Yeah.
And it'll pick the best things to put into the best slots depending on what you want.
But to me, that just seems like a horrible. That just seemed like, I don't know if it necessarily. I don't know if I would say it defeats the purpose of this game, but it kind of does. In a game where they've obviously put so much time and effort into developing this junctioning system between these GFs and your magic and your characters, if you just auto it, you're really, I think, frankly, you're doing yourself a disservice, frankly.
Very much so. Like, I'll say this. The way I played when I was a kid using auto junction to the way I play now, in the first, few hours of the game, when I don't have much, obviously I'm going to hit auto junction for attack.
Right.
For that first few little bit, while I'm working to get my draws, get all my magic.
Right.
But once I'm 7, 8, you're saying 7, 8 hours into the game, you've drawn magic from a good portion of what you want. You stocked up. That's when you stopped hopefully by then you've stopped auto junctioning.
Yeah.
And you're intricately figuring out. But then you can spend an hour or 2 hours just trying to figure out what's your best option for getting your health, your attack, and your defense, and your luck and vitality all up to max without affecting the other.
Yeah, and now this is another.
And that's a little bit monotonous.
Dude, almost everything I have to say about this game is a yin-yang, where there's a good and a bad. Because, Andre brings it up. See, what happens is that you only ever run a party of 3 characters, classic Final Fantasy. But, at any given time, you can have, 7 6, 7. I mean, I think for the most part, in most of the game, I think you have 6 people in your party. But I mean, we're gonna spoil some stuff, you guys. It's a fucking 20-year-old game. But like,
I think it's only 6.
Yeah.
Of your actual main playable characters.
Right. Well, because you get the headmistress or whatever for a little while, a day or whatever.
Oh, the sorceress. But I don't consider her one of the. She's kind of ancillary. Like, you get to use her for a bit, but she's not there for most of the game.
Right. Now, the cool thing and the thing I like about this is, like Andre said, the customization is I actually at times really enjoyed, because it was so. Like, one of the characters you get in this game is Zell, and I actually really like Zell. I thought Zell was a cool character.
He's ridiculous.
And he became, like, my tank, in the sense of, because we'll get into how you get better weapons and stuff like that in a minute, but I had a really good weapon for him, and then I had I had found just the right combination, because not only do the GFs come with the abilities to pair magic with certain stats, they also come with, like, boosts, and they come with new abilities, and one of those boosts might be strength up 40%, and that means if I have Ifrit equipped, HP 20 and 40, and I think strength 20 and 40, and then there's a defense one, I think, too. So I had Zell. I had a great weapon equipped on Zell. I had I think it was Ifrit or something, where I had like a plus 40 and a plus 60 or plus 80% strength or whatever, and then I had found a spell called Ultima and I'll get into that, where I kept drawing it, and I was equipping that to Zell's strength, and Zell was just a fucking hoss, and I found that incredibly satisfying to just, like, because I was like, I did this. I didn't look up any guides. I just found magic, I experimented, and I found a combination that created this fucking super powerful physical attacking character. And it's really fun when it works. The issue, and again, the yin-yang to all these systems is, first of all, Andre's right, it gets incredibly monotonous. And the second issue is that and I think this is fucking ridiculous, quite frankly. The magic that each character has stays on that character. Now, when you switch characters in your party, like, let's just say for argument's sake, I wanted to drop Zell out of my party and I wanted to bring in Sophie, then I can do that. And I can even tell it to take all of Zell's junctions and attach them to Sophie. So, or whatever her name. I think it was Sophie.
Sophie, yeah.
Yeah, Sophie. So then I don't have to...
Selphie. Yes,
Selphie, right.
I say Selphie, yeah.
So then there's some weird names in this game. We can talk about that in a minute. So I can take Zell out of my party, put Selphie in my party, and then just tell it to take everything that was junctioned on Zell and apply it all to Selphie. So then that'll take all of the GFs, the summons I had equipped on Zell, drop them onto Selphie, and she'll be set up like Zell. The problem is that the magic sticks per character. So if you want to trade magic amongst everybody or shift magic between everybody, you've got to go into this separate window, go to Selphie, say exchange magic, find, say, fire. Then I got to fucking pick Zell, go through find his fire. Then I can say how much do I want on each person, and you've got to do that over and over. In what world it didn't make sense?
Goddamn time.
Dude, in what world, like, how on earth they did not put an option in place to just have a fucking, just like how you have your items, just have a fucking magic list that I could take it from.
The magic exchange, it should have been, like, the junction exchange, magic should have just automatically been part of that.
Right, because
or given you, say, do you want to switch magic?
Oh, because I can take all
the option to say, because I would be like, yes, I've already maxed this guy out. I have all the magics up with him. Get everything. Yes, I want to switch magic too. If you just had that one there, that would have just made that junctioning system and switching the magic so much easier.
It's so infuriating because I found these right combos with Zell where I'm like, this guy's a tank. And you might be just thinking, listening to this and be like, well, dude, don't take Zell out of your party. But in classic Final Fantasy instance, you hit times where you have to have certain members in your party, blah, 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 blah. So then I'm like, oh, fuck, okay, well, I can't use Zell. I got to use Selphie. So then I take all of Zell's junctions, apply them to Selphie, and I'm like, now in theory, Selphie should be almost as strong as Zell was. But then it turns out Selphie doesn't have any of the magic that fucking Zell had equipped.
Or so now I got different magics, right? So
right.
There's different magic, so nothing applies properly.
So every time you have to switch your, like, I don't know about you, dude, but like I rolled the same party every instance I had because I was like,
yes.
I only switched when the game made me because it's just so tedious to fucking go back through all Zell's magic, find all the spells that he had, move him over to Selfie, and then, you know what, especially when you're playing the game for the first time, for all I know, the chapter of the game where I have to use, say, Selfie is fucking 20 minutes. And then it's over and I can go back to having Zell, but now I got to shift everything back again. And when I first saw that you could just move your junctions between characters, I was like, oh, well, that's not quite so bad then, because at least it makes it a quick, painless process. But then once I figured out that you attach magic to all these fucking stats, then I realized, like, I got to move all their magic around every time. I would have paid an extra $10 to just have an items menu of my magic where I could just, like, let's just say fire for a simple spell. I could just put draw all and click fire, and it would take all of everybody's fire and put it into this list. And then I could just sort it out as I wanted.
Oh, that would be so much easier.
Why on earth? Like, if you're going to make this the focus of your game, make it easy, because it is so tedious. There was times where and again, what it really does is, because you come up with there's 6 main characters, like Andre said. There's a couple of fringe characters, but you have 6 focus characters. And I rolled the same party of Squall, Zell, and fucking, what is her name? She had the weird name, Quistis?
Oh, Quistis. Okay, yours differs slightly from me, because I was Squall, Zell, and Renoa.
Okay, but that's it. Yeah. But you find the 3 you like, and you just roll them the whole game. And it is so goddamn frustrating. I don't get why you would make the whole game about pairing magic with these abilities and then make shifting magic between each other so shitty. It was just...
And it literally was the part where you come out, this was earlier on, where you're in the missile area, and then you have to split up. One team going, after you get out of the prison, one team goes to the garden, the other team goes to the missile. So you have to be switching everything back and forth to get, and it's just like,
so like Andre,
you're praying you've had enough. You drew, and the thing is, because like on that, like teams, like I rarely have ever played Irvine, Quistis, and Selfie if I didn't have to play them.
Yeah.
I just like the other 3 characters better. But if you're not drawing with them when you need to draw, it's just like...
Yeah, there's points in the game where you have to split into 2 parties, and the game flips between the 2 parties. And it was just like every time it flipped, I could feel my teeth grinding, because I was like, for fuck's sakes, now I got to take, like my primary party, and we'll get into the characters in a second, but my primary party was Squall, Quistis, and Zell. And then I had this other party of Irvine, Renoa, and Selfie. And every time I had to switch between the 2 parties, I had to take the 3 junctions on one party, move the 3 to the other. And that's easy enough with that switching menu, but none of the magic shifts over.
Simple.
And
Super simple.
Yeah, but then I don't have enough magic to leave all 6 characters equipped with a mountain of magic. So I have to go into each character, figure out what magic I'm moving, and it just... I just was like, and so like, for a lot of you that are throwing shade at the game, this is probably a big part of the reason you're throwing shade at the game. I agree with you in the sense that it is ridiculously tedious and complicated and stupid, but I disagree with you in the sense that I really, really like the concept of this system. It just needed to be made simpler to use.
If it would have been explained properly, and just be able to exchange magic and exchange certain things easier, and actually taught you how to use the junction system in the game actually properly. Honestly, this is a wonderful system.
I really like it.
If you know how to use it.
Now it's
just monotonous to get everything to a point.
Yeah,
and especially if you're switching.
Now, one thing I actually love about this system is that, first of all, it does eliminate grinding, which I know some people hate, some people love, but we've already explained. Grinding does practically nothing. 90% of this game is about the right junctions of magic with GX with characters. Now, what I will say that I love,
you can end the game at level like 25,
right? Yeah,
or even lower. Technically, I've heard of people finishing the game at like level 10.
Yeah, I got to the end of the game, and I think like obviously Squall is the main character, so he's always in your party, so he's my highest character. But I don't even think Squall's at level 30. Like I got to the end of the game under level 30.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I love about that,
you don't need to get high levels, it's very different. It's a very different outlook on Final Fantasy from everything this game for 7 games had been all about grinding, get yourself stronger, grinding, and to turn it on a head and not to explain it properly, I think is a slight against it.
Oh, it's huge. But what I love about it is the fact that, like, one of my, I don't want to say one of my major criticisms, but almost my only criticism of Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy III, whatever, on the SNES, is that I'm the type of person that doesn't like to see members of my team get under-leveled and get left behind. Like, I'm constantly switching characters in and out to get everyone leveled up, to keep everybody strong. What I love, and this is maybe one of my favorite things about this game, is that was not even a factor. Because outside of,
I get annoyed by it not leveling people that aren't in your party. That bothers me just a little bit as being a Final Fantasy fan.
Right.
But then when you think about it, it's like, I don't need to, because I can just junction him to the right point, and I don't need to worry about it.
In this game, a character's level means almost nothing outside of a couple of minor things. I was like, dude, I love the fact that I don't have to worry about it. It gives you
minor base boosts.
Yeah.
But very minor base boosts.
So I love that. You can pretty well, like I said, and Andre said the same. Andre ran, Squall, Zell, and Rinoa. I ran Squall, Zell, and Quistis. And that was my character for the whole my party for 9/10 of the game. And I was like, this is so nice to know that if I ever, when a side story comes up where I have to control, say, a selfie, then it really is just it's a tedious process of equipping the right magic to level her up. But that's all I have to do, and then she's leveled up. I don't have to worry about the fact that she's
that much easier to deal with.
Yeah. So I loved that about it.
Yep.
Now I think
the switch back and forth. Once you do it, once you get through the monotony of switching, it makes the game so much easier to play that way.
Yeah, so that I really enjoyed that. I think that basically covers dude, there's so many extra things, you guys. You can do stuff like some of your GFs as they level up, because they get AP at the end of battles, which is basically their experience points. And as they level up, they unlock more attributes, and those attributes can be things like, now you can junction magic to your HP. Now you can junction magic to your strength. They could be things like stat boosters, like strength plus 20% or whatever. They could be things like additional commands that you can use in battle. Like one of the commands you can get is card. And we'll get into the card game in a minute. But if you equip,
you can draw a card and turn people into cards.
Yeah, if you equip the card ability to a character, it's like in a lot of Final Fantasy games, there's a thief character that'll have the steal command where they can steal from enemies. If you equip the card command to one of your characters, if they use that on an enemy, they can attempt to turn them into a card for the other mini game in the game, which, again, we'll get into that in just a minute. So, like, there's all kinds.
Final Fantasy card games.
Yeah. So there's tons of little ways that you can power up your GFs and make them unique, and I really, really liked that as well. And then there's other abilities, like you can unlock the ability, and I know this might sound complicated, it fucking is. You can unlock the ability through a GF